what we have seen is we've kind of fast-tracked some of our applications. So we're not requiring every single document when you apply. Just like if you don't have a birth certificate, if you don't have your Social Security card, we're not going to deny you. We're actually going to go ahead and approve you provisionally, and we're going to give you a deadline of like 30 days or so past your approval date to get those documents to us, because we know people need assistance now. So if you apply it, yeah.
Go ahead. At the recent demonstration there on the tribal campus, this was one of the issues and some of the topics that were brought up, besides the care relief packages and COVID-related stuff, which we'll get to in just a second. But many people are saying there wasn't enough help, that the tribe had enough money to buy fancy buses for travel and stuff, but they weren't able to help the folks who really needed help and just trying to survive and pay the rent and keep a roof over the head. Now, that's where you can provide some help there, right?
Yes, we can provide that for the people who live within Cree Nation's jurisdiction. We're in the reservation now, so we can provide that. For the citizens who live outside of the boundaries, we do refer those to social services, because those services does have quite a bit of programs to help with at-large citizens. With the hardship program, that was the main program that can help with those at-large citizens. And then even then, for our TANF program, we do refer them to the state for TANF. If they don't live in let's say it was Oklahoma, we refer to the state. There are only 3 tribal TANF programs in Oklahoma, and that's our program, Cree Nations, Osage, and Cherokees have just came on, started last October. The Cherokees have a tribal TANF program too that have assisted us quite a bit also. Now, out-of-state citizens, we do refer to those state programs, or if they live in a reservation area and they have a tribal TANF program, we're going to make sure they get in contact with that tribal TANF program, because they're eligible too. A lot of those other programs, they serve all citizens within their area also.
So it does provide answers to some of the questions people were raising there. That's so good to know. Now, of course, part of their concerns and topics being raised were, of course, any kind of relief related to the COVID-19 epidemic that struck us, that has brought our whole national economy almost to a screeching halt. Now, your agency there now has been designated to handle some of that assistance, correct?
Yeah, us, our program, and social services.
Okay, now what forms will this help take?
Oh, I'm sorry, what now?
How are you be able to help? I understand there are grants being made for COVID-related problems, and I'm asking, I guess, if you could explain how that your agency now is handling that relief, who is eligible, what kinds of guidelines are involved. I guess people are still raising those questions.
Yeah, we're just going, of course, most of the guidelines are out there. So with the coronavirus relief aid, we're following those guidelines. Because what we're doing too, like I said, us and social services, we've always been a collaborative program. We have just given the task of administering the coronavirus relief aid. So what we've done, just kind of backstory in that is, we have pulled some of our staff from each of our programs to process those applications. And so those guidelines are what is out there now on the web, which, of course, we have the income support program and the hardship program. The income support program are for citizens who receive Social Security or who receive a veteran's disability or have been who have reduced income or lost employment. And those that are going eligible for the income support program, and that's with $1,500. That's for each citizen, as long as they're part of that. The hardship program is for these for citizens who are under 400% of the federal poverty guideline, and that's a very high poverty guideline. So one person, as long as they don't make over $51,000, they'll be eligible for the $500 hardship, and those are per citizens. Some people have seen some comments where it says, kids don't receive anything, but it is per citizen in the household. So if your children are enrolled, they're eligible for that $500 also. The income support, if there are two parents in the house, two adults in the household, and they both receive Social Security, each adult is going to receive $1,500 each. So it's just trying to get the word out. We want people to apply. Some people think they're not eligible. Well, we want you to go ahead and apply for the program. So that way, if you are eligible, that's great. You'll get, we'll send you an approval letter. We'll get that out to you. If you're not eligible, you'll just receive a denial letter saying that based on this information that you sent in, you're not eligible for this program. But if you do need assistance, we do refer to our other programs within Creek Nation. What assistance you need, we're going to refer out.
The demonstration brought out one point. People were quite adamant in saying that, well, everybody is affected by the COVID-19 crisis, and so therefore everybody should get this help. Bless their hearts. I understand where they're coming from, but these monies cannot be handed out like a per capita. They have to have the applicants conform or be eligible under these guidelines, right?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, since Creek Nation is not a per capita tribe, we are not allowed to issue what is deemed a per capita. And so with the CARES Money Act, we were given specific guidelines on how we can handle that. And those are online also. People can go online and read those, how Creek Nation can handle those. I just know that we would love to help everybody. So that sometimes when we're given certain monies, we do have to follow those guidelines, or else Creek Nation will be penalized. And so that could cause more hardship on programs, too, if Creek Nation has to repay some money. So Creek Nation is very diligent in trying to make sure that they do follow guidelines so we do not have to repay any money.
Maybe this is an oversimplification, but it seems like then if you're going to take and use federal money, you got to take and use federal rules, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, now since now the program is now active, you are distributing this sort of support and assistance? Yeah, we've been have been processing applications for the CARES relief aid, and we've dispersed monies, checks to people already. One thing I do want to say too, that we get a lot of phone calls saying, what's the status of my check, what's the status of my application. We are continuously processing, and we just want to make sure that everybody does understand that just because we haven't gotten to your application yet doesn't mean we won't. We are continuously processing. We do have several people in place. We're adding more people on right now, actually, to start processing applications. And so we're trying best we can to get these out to people, because we do have a timeline. This money has to be all dispersed by December 30th. And so we are working as fast as we can, as hard as we can, to get everything out, to make sure we hit everybody. My next question is related to the information you just shared. First of all, what's been the reaction? Have you been flooded with applications, or are they kind of trickling in? And two, do you have the staff maybe to keep up with the demand so people don't have to wait too long?
Yeah. It's been a wave of applications. I can kind of from the numbers that I've seen, I know we have a COVID email, and so I know there has been probably about 10,000 emails on that email alone that we are going through, and then I know there's thousands of paper applications that have been sent in. We have boxes and boxes of applications that have been opened, and so we're getting those out. We're trying to get those all into the queue so that we can start processing all of them also. So it's not just trickling in. Yeah, they're coming in waves. Every day they're coming in waves. And so that's when we ask people to come be patient with us, that we are working on it. Like I said about our staff who are processing, when we first started this, we had people in place. Okay, you're going to do this, and then after our initial wave of applications, we saw, okay, we need more people. So we added a little more people, and so now we're adding even more people right now to try and get in to process these out, because we are trying. Our processors are continuously working, like I said. Some are working even after hours, late into the night, because, everybody understands that these have to be done. And so we want to make sure the citizens who have applied, they get that assistance that they need.
Wow, that sounds like a monumental challenge there. You said you're trying to add staff. Are you at a point where it's adequate now, or are you still kind of behind the eight ball just a bit?
No, we are still looking. We've actually just came on work experience with the employment and training program. They've actually put out an application form for people to apply, and we added a few people from that program, work experience program, to start processing applications and looking at applications also. And so we're training those people to start doing this. And then, like I said, we have some current staff that we've taken away from our current programs and reassigned them to the CARES Relief Aid. And so they'll be paid from there also. So we are trying to, and we're continuously monitoring how much staff we have. So if we see that we need more, we're going to get more. Because like I said, we would love to have 100 people working these applications. It's also, there's not the space either to have that many people. And so we're working with our core group to try and make sure that everybody's working. Everybody in our programs are doing in the hand, whether it's scanning, typing up something, I would say that we're getting to the adequate staff that we need.
Are you then accepting applications from people who are looking for work there?
Our programs are not doing that exactly. We have, like I said, employment and training has opened that up. We asked them to assist us, and so they opened that up. And so we did receive several applications for that. And so, and the future, in the very near future, we may be looking at more people. Possibly, we'll just have to look at space-wise also.
Okay, then you can put your staff to work where the problem is. If someone was interested in that kind of thing or contacting you for other information, first of all, what kind of qualifications should someone have if they wanted to apply for help, for work, rather?
For what employment and training has, and what we're kind of looking for, is just to make sure that people do have some kind of computer knowledge, customer friendly, and can make sure that they can keep information very confidential, and make sure that they show up for work, because we do want to make sure that who are processing are coming in, and our main things, like I said, are just make sure that they are computer literate and customer service friendly, and are mature enough that they can make sure that they can do confidential information.
Okay. Now, Mark, if someone had questions about getting some help and finding out about what sorts of relief is out there, how do they get in touch with your agency?
For the CARES relief or the TANF program?
Well, let's start with TANF real quick and then CARES.
Okay. For TANF, they can call us at our main number, which is 918-732-7985. And those are where we will answer any questions about the TANF program. For the CARES relief aid, there is a hotline set up, which is 918-549-2440. That does go to a call center, and that does also go to a message too. That because we have had to kind of pull some people away from the call center to start processing applications. So that's one reason why if you do not get an answer in that line, then that's because we're continuously processing applications. Like I said, we've had to pull people out of there to process applications also. So that call center, there's going to be a message in there, and we do ask people to wait at least 6 to 8 weeks. If you do not hear something within 6 to 8 weeks, please let us know. Because, like I said, we're trying to process as much as we can. So we're trying to pull people in that who have knowledge already of this. So we're trying to just do what we can. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. The key word there is patience, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Mark Pendergrass, thank you so much for taking some time to explain this situation a bit for us. Probably answered a few questions that people had. And again, if you still have more, you want to apply for either of these programs, get a hold of you at TANF, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mado. We appreciate you, the job you're doing, and you hanging in there with us.
All right, thank you so much.
Now, the program's going to take a short pause, and then we're going to be coming back with a conversation, one of the press briefings provided by the administration with Jason Salzman and our legal scholar and wonderful achiever Sarah Deer with colleague Angel Ellis. So I want to thank you, Jared Moore, for providing this material. But we'll take a short pause first.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
All right, last week for the followers of the TV program Mvskoke Vision, they had the Zoom press conference with Jason Salzman and Sarah Deer concerning the legal ramifications of the McGirt situation. So please, let's review that and take some information with us.
I'm going to welcome everyone. I want to thank you for tuning in to our weekly live executive reports from the executive branch of the Mvskoke Creek Nation. I am Angel Ellis, reporter for Mvskoke Media, and each week we're bringing you information and guests who update us on the latest happenings of the Mvskoke Creek Nation. Today I'm going to welcome our guest, Mvskoke Creek citizen, lawyer, advocate, and educator, Sarah Deer. And joining us, as always, is Jason Salzman, who is the MCM press secretary for the executive branch. Thank you guys for joining us, and we have a lot of information to share, and we've got an expert on tap who can help us understand what the McGirt opinion means for Indian country and the Mvskoke Creek Nation. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Angel, so much. And it's always great to have this platform each week to be able to share some news and to talk with our media department as well as our citizens. And speaking of citizens that we hold in very much high regard, Sarah Deer is one of those, and we want to thank her so much. Sarah, I personally wanted to reach out to you and for you to be able to provide the time to come on with us to talk about a monumental decision and one that will affect history, but also it's just so wonderful to get a sacred promise kept on such a grand level, and for you to come in and give some expertise, some knowledge in your field, and really just some commentary is just wonderful for our atmosphere here. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.
I'd like to just start off from like the human interest point of view. And I'm kind of, that's my background as a reporter, but I just really want to tap your brain and just like, where were you and what were your thoughts when you found out about the opinion?
Well, there's a website called SCOTUS blog that live tweets all of the opinion days. And so for the last, 4-6 weeks now, every time there was an opinion day, I'd get up real early. Well, for me, early, and sit and scroll through the live tweets from SCOTUS blog. And it was finally the last day. And so we'd been waiting and waiting. And then that last day finally came. I prepared myself before I went to sleep for a bad decision, the decision denying our reservation. And so when I first saw Gorsuch wrote it, my initial reaction was like, oh, this is good. And then I read the syllabus, and then I read the first paragraph of the decision, and I was very emotional. And I think I screamed, yes, woke my husband up.
Yeah, I made the joke on social media that night. I was like, okay, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not going to be sleeping anytime soon. And I, like you, had been up every day on SCOTUS. I like to think that day, all those 30,000 people who were hitting the SCOTUS blog was all Native people. Like, that's my imagination going a little crazy. But can you talk about like why that's such an emotional thing, and because how important it is to Indian country?
Well, it's we don't win treaty cases. They're very difficult cases to win, especially since Congress has the authority to abrogate a treaty. So it's very difficult to sustain a treaty rights case. But this is more than just reestablishing or re-recognizing the boundaries of the reservation. It's also a gift for all of Indian country, because the decision contains principles and logic that can apply to a lot of different tribal issues. And I think that we can pretty much say this may be the case of the century for all of Indian country. And so as a Creek citizen, just speaking for myself, not the tribe or anyone else, I feel really happy and grateful that our nation took the risk and did this case, because we'll be known for it. Other tribes are going to cite McGirt v. Oklahoma, and they're going to know the hard work that Creek Nation put into the case. So as a citizen, that makes me very happy.
Yeah, definitely. I know it was very long waited decision to have it carry over and everything. Is there like any kind of things that stand out in your mind about, I feel like I didn't really realize that Gorsuch was a poet, and maybe that's just my own interpretation of what I read, but I've heard people call him the textualist, who just looks at the text of the law, and his opinion really kind of cited that, regardless of race, color, and creed, the law says this. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting because Gorsuch certainly took just a very dry reading of all of the laws, and came up with the correct conclusion in my mind. But so I don't think he used his own emotion or empathy or anything like that to help color his decision. I think his decision was based on just the facts, right? Just the facts of the law. But the way he wrote the decision was almost like a gift to us, I think, to see how strongly he feels that the law is on our side. It'd be a difficult case to try to reverse a few years down the road, because it's so profound and it's so absolutist in its recognition of uninterrupted reservation boundaries.
When we talk about an uninterrupted reservation boundary, there's a lot of chatter, a lot of talk, a lot of questions about what that exactly means, because we were used to kind of operating under this assumption that really all we had control over was restricted tribal trust land. And this actually says, hey, for the last however long, they never disestablished these jurisdictional boundaries, and that applies to can you describe what that would actually apply to as the 1866 treaty laid out?
Right. Well, Creek Nation has claimed this as a reservation. It's in our Constitution in Article 1, that the political jurisdiction of the nation extends to the boundaries of the reservation. We also have it in our Creek Criminal Code that Indian country includes anything under 18 USC 1151. So Creek Nation already has acknowledged the boundaries many, many times. And now we've just had the federal courts kind of catch up with it.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of citizens who have been stopping and asking me questions to ask of different legal experts. And our live feed right now is like popping up a few. And I think one of the questions for our Native audience is there any reason to believe that certain state laws would supersede, or does federal law kind of play into factor? And I think that they're coming from this place of what does this mean for open carry of firearms, medical marijuana licenses? Is this kind of a new gray area that we're going to have to navigate through?
I'm not sure about that. The case really only talks about criminal law, so there's a lot of unknowns right now. But nothing changes in terms of the relationship between how the state and the tribe work together. We are sovereign entities, and we have worked together, or the tribe has worked together with the state on all kinds of issues over time. And this isn't going to change that. This is going to continue to allow Creek Nation to engage as a sovereign nation with our counterparts in the state. So whatever controversial issue might be arising, it probably will have to be negotiated. But what can't be negotiated is the boundaries of our treaty, or the boundaries of our reservation, rather. That can't be negotiated.
Sure. So the details and everything that were, when we talk about that, like recognition of the treaty, that pertained, in the opinion, it pertained specifically to criminal matters, because I have people asking me, what about civil implications? What about taxes and things like that?
Yeah, there will be other implications. Anytime you have an Indian reservation, there's a lot could happen civilly, but I don't think most people are going to see it affect their lives from day to day. I don't think that, there's no transfer of land going on, right? We don't get to kick white people off their land, which some of the national headlines suggested.
Right.
So a lot is not going to change. And so it's hard to predict at this point what civilly will change. There may be tax implications, but that's not my area of expertise. But at the end of the day, I think that our nation is a strong nation that will make the right decisions for our citizens.
You've had a little more experience in seeing other tribal nations navigate the legal process than I have. And I have people come up and ask, like, well, this is like completely unknown. And I kind of remind them that it's really not unknown for communities to exist within tribal reservations. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, there's whole cities that exist on tribal reservations, and this is not new.
Right. No, there are some very large reservations in the West. I'm thinking in Montana and Idaho and some of those areas that include, there are more non-native people living on the reservation than native people, and that is a legacy of allotment and a lot of other things. But it doesn't change the sovereignty of the tribe, and so. These can coexist, right? The reservation can coexist with non-Indian government entities. They're not mutually exclusive, and it's not a zero-sum game.
Is there any specific instances that you can think of? I keep trying to remember the specifics, but I feel like having an opinion that reaffirms your treaty jurisdictions will be very important going forward into the next century or so when we talk about water rights and things like that. Can you give us any examples of how that could be, or any current examples in the news that we've been seeing? Is there anything that you've been following along?
Again, I have to kind of admit my narrow focus. I'm almost purely a criminal a law person, but there are a lot of experts out there. I think there's going to be a number of webinars that discuss water rights, taxation, all of those kinds of things, by professors who do study in those kinds of areas. And so I'm going to be joining them to learn just like everyone else.
Sure. Yeah. I'll kind of like have you kind of steer me at those experts, because I'm
Sure.
really not
I
always
post them all on
familiar
I post all the webinars I'm hearing about on my Facebook page. There's two or
Awesome.
three already planned. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. That's good to hear. I have kind of a question for Jason specifically on this one.
Sure.
We've reached out to the Mvskoke Creek Nation's Attorney General with questions, and right now he's not able to comment. But are you seeing any indication that our executive branch or our tribe in general might be looking at expanding tribal code, criminal code specifically, or is there any work going into bolstering the justice system in general?
Well, Angel, that's a great question, because I think you almost have to. You're almost forced to look at everything now. I can't say that I've been in any meetings or discussions with Attorney General where they're saying we need to look at tribal code on this, this, and this. But I think there have been questions posed by regular citizens of what to do with medical marijuana dispensaries, what to do with these licenses now that are okay by the state, but not okay under federal Indian land statutes and things like that. So I think that there are questions out there. And like Sarah said, it's a bit of an unknown right now, other than sort of criminal. We kind of have a clear-cut case of let's bring in the bad guys, and then let's figure out which court they go to, or whatever comes up, in criminal cases of this crime happened. Let's see who did it, who committed it, who they committed it against, what kind of crime it was, whether it's a major crime or a misdemeanor, things like that. And then you will appropriately get them to the right court to be tried in. And I think that that's kind of what we know right now. And then there's so much other unknowns, as Sarah said, herself an expert and many other experts in the field are looking at. We're going to have to collaborate. We're going to have these webinars. We're going to have to speak with one another and amongst people legally, where we do set precedents going forward, and we do get those agreements going forward, and we do really sort of show ourselves the way of this new reality, which for us has always been a reality, as she said, but just affirmed by the highest court in the land, which, as she also said, we don't get many wins in the highest court of the land. So it's really monumental, wonderful. And just to sort of kind of go off of what Sarah said as well, of where you were when you heard, we were actually up at River Spirit. I was actually with Chief Hill and Second Chief Beaver. And it was just such a moment to, again, sort of, it was this perfect storm. We're sitting there and I'm standing up holding my laptop with SCOTUS blog, and I'm, kind of going through, and I'm like refreshing. I'm like, here we go, guys, here we go. And so it pops up and we start reading, and it's 86 pages, I think. And like Sarah said, she went right to the syllabus and then kind of went to the opinion, and it was like, where do you start? And then you kind of going through everything. And I guess it was so funny to me, because as we're sitting there scrolling through, I get a text on my phone from Jonadev Chowdhury, and it just says all caps, "We won," with all these exclamation points, while we're looking to see,
Right.
did we win? And then I kind of deferred to just John's expertise and was like, that means we won. I don't need to read anymore. And we all kind of, together let out emotions. Emotions
Yeah.
came out. And then you get, like, I've not been able to read the first line of Justice Gorsuch's opinion without chilling and tearing up since. I mean, to this day, it's just such a powerful opinion. And then there's like zingers in there too, which I thought was great. There's like emotion, but then there was also like verbal takedowns of the establishment,
And what I love about how he did that is he did his takedowns and his snarkiness in the footnotes. And he did his more eloquent sort of reading of the law and the history and more sort of prose and the main part of his opinion, and then put his snarkiness in the footnotes, which was kind of fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just like I said, I've said this, I think it was on Twitter, but I saw it as a work of art. It was absolutely beautiful. And I think really stuck to the heart of the matter in all facets.
I'm like already recommending that we start making posters that quote Gorsuch's opinion, like for our market. I'm like, okay, this is a beautiful line. Let's cut that out and make a poster because I want to hang it on the wall.
Yeah.
For me personally, I was watching on a Zoom meeting with other people, and I see them roll it up, and then I'm like, oh, okay, it is Gorsuch, and it's 5-4, and I was like, whoa, and what I was crazy like about trying to figure out, like you were trying to like look through the actual opinion, and I'm like, whoa, lots and lots of legal language. And then I hit Facebook, and I'm so embarrassed, but I was like, what's Sarah Deer saying? And then so I go to your page, and I'm like, she says when, and we can celebrate. That's kind of how it rolled out for me. Already we're sitting here at day 6 of after the opinion. Not even a full week yet. I'm seeing more press releases coming from the U.S. Attorney's Office, more press releases that indicate that they have either acquired a case somehow, or whether they started the investigation, or I'm not sure. But I noticed that these cases can involve, or they do, it seems like a few more of them are coming through the U.S. Attorney that involve Native Americans. And they cite the interagency, collaboration. And it looks like that's going to be the standard, I'm thinking, at least for now. Is that typical of what you would expect in this scenario where a tribal reservation has been, upheld, and now the U.S. attorneys are probably going to look a little busier? Is that something that we would typically see?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know that we have a parallel event to compare this to. I could be wrong about that. But yes, the jurisdiction for a few of these cases is going to just transfer to federal court. The procedural mechanisms and the filings, I'm not sure about the details of that. But under 1151, the federal prosecutors are going to have jurisdiction over crimes committed by Indians, major crimes committed by Indians within the boundaries of our 1866 treaty reservation. Instead of just the restricted land, it'll be the whole.
Yeah,
the whole reservation.
I think I've gotten about 3 or 4 different press releases, and 3 or 4 different press releases that indicate that, like, one of the scenarios I saw play out was a very ugly crime. And I was really upset at the way I saw the county handle it. They just kind of threw their hands up and said, okay, because of the SCOTUS opinion, we've dropped the charges on this guy. But they didn't bother to let people know that the U.S. attorneys were picking it up. Are we going to be, is that just kind of that early knee-jerk reaction of people who are seeing the scope of their work change? Or is that something we might have to, as a tribe, start doing proactive work on to reassure that justice is going to be done in Indian country?
Well, sure. I think anytime there's confusion, and when you work in a high stressful job like a law enforcement agency, I can't imagine what it would be like to be a law enforcement officer right now trying to puzzle this all out. And so I could appreciate and empathize with some frustration, but in the end, we all want the same thing. We all want victims of crime to be protected, and we want people who committed acts of violence to be held accountable. And I think everyone's on board with that. So this is just these are some bumps that are going to be worked out. But if I were a law enforcement officer, I would be pretty confused right now myself.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we are all kind of like wading into new territory and seeing how the path clears out. Is there anything that off the top of your head that I'm missing and we haven't talked about in regards to the SCOTUS opinion, something important we should be looking out for, except maybe the possibility that Congress could be working on disestablishment? Is that something we need to be paying real close attention to?
There definitely probably will be interest in trying to, walk back from this decision. Of course, Congress does have plenary power, and they do have the ability to abrogate a treaty. So that could be a possibility, but I don't see how that would help anyone right now. I think that the better thing to do is focus on what we have now and how we can make it work. The other thing I think is we're not talking enough about, and I filed an amicus brief with my Cherokee colleague, Mary Catherine Nagel, on behalf of Native women and children. So it seems a little ironic, right, that this case that involved pretty violent people ended up being the answer to our question about our reservation boundaries. And that is a little strange. So I just want to think about the victims in these cases, the victims' families in these cases, because I can't imagine how difficult this is for them, especially since these crimes occurred so long ago and it feels like everything is getting dredged up again, and may have to see a new trial, a lot of unknowns, and a lot of victims that never reported these men for the crimes they'd committed. So there's people that are really hurting, that haven't seen justice. And so I really think we have to balance our enthusiasm with this decision with the very real reality of humans that have been devastated by violence, and to not, sort of brush that under the rug.
Yeah.
And Sarah, not to jump in, Angel, but I think that's such an excellent point, Sarah, because what I thought of immediately was that exact point, is that we have these heinous crimes that are the basis for this decision being handed out, that is such a cause for celebration amongst Mvskoke Creeks. But the very reason that this was brought before the Supreme Court was because the principals in these crimes were Mvskoke Creek, and so are their families. So imagine the pull between having to relive the crimes, having to go through the trauma of that whole scenario. Plus, on this side of it is what you've always wanted as a Mvskoke Creek citizen, was to win and be affirmed your land, your reservation, your promises, everything that's been made and broken over the years. Finally, we have this victory. I can't imagine the inner turmoil that must, result from that, is having those two sides of this issue. And I think it was really important to Chief Hill that to have that moment where we stopped, we prayed for the victims of the crimes in these cases, we prayed for those families just almost immediately after the decision, because we didn't want to get caught up in the hoopla of this win while not thinking about that. Yes, let's celebrate. Yes, it's wonderful. But at the same time, thank you, Sarah. That is an unbelievable point, is that we cannot, if we're going to stand up for victims' rights, and we're going to be a tribe that's nationally known for our family violence prevention program, we have to care and have to show respect, love, and absolute attention, importance of justice for the victims of such crimes. And I think that was the important thing.
Absolutely. And it's sort of disappointing in a way that, as everyone will be citing this case for hundreds of reasons over the next, decades, they're going to be citing to McGirt v. Oklahoma, not Creek Nation versus Oklahoma. Yeah. And so it's this child molester, who was sentenced to over 1,000 years in state prison. And that's sort of the moniker, right, of this treaty rights case. And it would have been nice if there was some way to have negotiated that to be Creek Nation versus Oklahoma, but that's the way the case came down, and that's the name of the case.
Yeah. And I think that you've seen and I think, just real quick, Angel, I don't like to see headlines dealing with jurisdictional Mvskoke Creek Nation boundary, reservation affirmed. That's the headline, and then the big picture is Jim C. McGirt in a jumpsuit. I think that sort of, makes people question, what is this really about, or go, who is, what avenue are you using to get the end result, or whatever, and I think that's a big part of it too.
Well, and Creek Nation was not party to this case. It's between the criminal and the state of Oklahoma. And so I just want to again acknowledge the Creek Nation leaders who took this on. It was not required. And I know it was a risk. And it was very, very stressful for those who had to make these decisions. But I think in the end, it was the right thing to do. Cases come from strange places sometimes. But I think that the rest of Indian country is very, very grateful for the leadership that Creek Nation has shown in this case and seeing it through to the end.
It's definitely given me the opportunity to reach out to colleagues in the industry and kind of be an ambassador to talk about this is how reporting in Indian country should look when you're dealing with the tribe, and this is what is exploitive. And I've gotten mixed reviews, but hey, it's an opportunity to have a conversation on my part, and so I feel like that's always fruitful, whether it's advice heeded or not. But I have one final question really before I kind of let everybody go. I know everybody has a busy afternoon, but so we did win, and we do have the reaffirmation of our reservation, but it was one vote away. And what would it look like the other way? And how close were we to, and what would that have looked like had it gone the other way?
Well, we know that Murphy was a tie. There were only 8 justices left on the court at the time that Murphy needed to be decided, and they didn't decide it because they couldn't make a decision. So we knew that the new justice would be the swing vote because it was the exact same legal question. The Murphy and McGirt were the exact same legal question. Is the reservation boundaries, are they intact? And so we knew we had a tie. So I was pretty confident it would be 5-4, one way or the other. It's hard to think about what it would have felt like to open that case last Thursday and see a loss, because it would be basically saying, we broke your treaty and there's nothing you can do about it. And that would have been very painful, right? But now there's hope and ideas and, pride and gratefulness for our leaders that took this on. I don't like to think about actually what it would have looked like. And I have to be honest, this is not something a professor should say, but I haven't read the dissent yet. I'll give that a few more days. I have an idea of what it is because I read the footnotes of Gorsuch, but no, I decided to give myself some space and I'll read the dissent sometime later.
Well, make sure you have a lot of time because Justice Roberts really took his time with the dissent. It was like 13 pages before we were like, okay, something else, So.
Yeah. I was kind of alarmed by the dissent. I actually read the whole dissent before reading the entire opinion. I read through the opinion kind of like, oh, and it was high on life kind of feeling. And then I was like, let's see what the other half feel like. And it was kind of alarming to see some of the interpretations from the highest authority of the justice system in the nation and what they actually feel like the law does. And there was actually I'm alarmed by how many instances where the demographic data matters more to them than the context of the law. And that just scared the bejesus out of me as a person who's a tribal citizen. I just couldn't put it any other way. And I even said it on record with a few outlets who asked me my personal thoughts of covering this. And I was like, it's alarming to see, powerful legal leaders acknowledge that the law is right for white people. And I was like, it's just kind of shakes you a little bit. And it shouldn't be that way for any group of people ever. Justice is blind, right? That's the concept you're kind of brought up to think, but I'm sure I'll hear back on those comments, but we have a few questions in the chat. They mostly pertain to Mvskoke Creek programs. Jason, if you want to take one.
Yeah, I took a look at the questions and I appreciate that, TY. A lot of them, a couple of them I can answer. A lot of them, I'm going to actually take these questions and screenshot, take them to Chief Attorney General Roger Wiley and get maybe some direction as far as these are what citizens' concerns are. This is what citizens are asking, and take a look at it. I know some of this that he's touched on here is things that they are already considering and maybe have some wheels spinning on and have already asked and are figuring out and are at a very base level. But as Sarah said, I think judging from the decision itself and the case itself, really dealing with a lot of criminal side of this at the forefront. And then we're going to lots of work to do, not only with ourselves and our own code, our own government, but also our partnerships and our work with the state, local, and federal governments as well, and doing everything we can. But I want to stress this. just continuing the great work that we've already done for so many years. I
Yeah.
mean, we've had cross deputizations, we've worked with state agencies, we've worked with federal agencies seamlessly, almost so seamlessly that people don't even know that those agreements exist or that your life will forever change because of this case or anything like that. No, very much, in criminal cases. And let's not forget, the Mvskoke Creek Nation court system predates Oklahoma statehood. It predates Georgia statehood from where we came from. I mean, we believe in our courts. We believe in our judicial system. We believe in our litigators, and we believe in our foot soldiers on the ground working these domestic violence cases, these cases of ICWA and getting children to the right families and everything like that. So we believe in those things that are already in place that have been working. There's no reason to think that this won't just enhance what's already been in place.
Right.
All right, discussions with Angel Ellis and our legal scholar, Sarah Deer. We want to thank you for listening and joining in. Hope that you got some information to take back with you, and hope that you'll join us again next week. Gary Fife saying, Mado Mabu Hedges good. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.